I want to talk about why SaaS pricing is so hard. So whenever I engage with a new client, the question is usually the same, whether this is a pre-revenue startup or an established enterprise. The question is, how do I price my product? So we come up with a solution, we want to bring it to market, we need a pricing model, how do I price it? And usually these companies, whether they are pre-revenue startups or scale-ups or established enterprises, will have gone through 4 different exercises in order to try and answer that question. First, they will have asked anyone internally, sales, marketing, customer success, product, board members, so forth. What do you think we should do with this? How should we price our product? They have asked the customers, surveys, interviews, so forth. They have gone and done a competitive analysis. So if you're in the marketing automation space, you might have looked at HubSpot's pricing and so forth. And fourth, they might have done business case work. So, well, if your solution saves 20% time from frontline staff, you can say, well, the customer is going to have 1,000 frontline staff, and we save 20%. So that equates to 200 frontline staff salaries per year, turns out to some dollar amount, and we will take a cut of that kind of analysis. So the problem now is I have these 4 sources of information: internal, customer, competitor, and business case, but it isn't at all clear how I turn that into an answer to my question, how do I price my product? And the reason for that is it's the wrong question. After maybe doing 200 redesigns of SaaS pricing models, this is my conclusion. You do not need to price your product. It's the wrong unit of analysis. And I want to tell you a story in order to get to why I think it is and what we should do about it. So I want to take you on a time travel, maybe 150, 200 years back to the killer app of the 1800s, which was trains. So trains, I would argue, are just like enterprise software. They solve a big problem. They take you from A to B at a fraction of the time. But you need to build them first, so there's a lot of development cost, CapEx cost involved in setting up the solution, during which time you make no money. So you have to build the entire solution first, and only when you can transport someone from A to B, let's say the Transcontinental Railroad in the US, I think the first line was from Philadelphia to Sacramento in California, you cannot charge anyone a ticket fee until you actually have laid the last mile of tracks, right? So we have a big upfront cost, but then once we have laid the final track, the transportation of the individual passenger is, let's say, almost free. So we pay $1 billion upfront, but then the transportation of the individual customer is 0. So this presents us with a pricing problem, because at what ticket price are we profitable, right? So if we sell our software for $1, do we then make $1 in profit because our variable costs on that account is 0? Or should we factor in the whole development cost, the overhead, and so forth? So this is what really separates a lot of software companies from a lot of traditional, let's say, retail or product companies, is that their unit economics are way different and their cost bases are way different. So the original Transcontinental Railroad had the same issue. At the beginning, so in 1830, there was a lot of railroads up and down the East Coast and up and down the West Coast of US, but there was no Transcontinental Railroad. And there were too many people on the East Coast. They had come over from Europe, and not enough on the West Coast, where there was arable land, there were silver mines, there was a lot of things. So the federal government, we wanted to transport people across to the West Coast to populate that and ease off the population pressure on the East Coast. Now, the use case was as follows. It took about 6 months to do the trip on foot or in a caravan or by pony ride if you wanted to go from east to west. It would cost you about $6,000 in 1840 money, and the mortality rate was about 10 to 20%. So 10 to 20% of people who started the trip wouldn't make it alive. They would die of typhus, diarrhea, so different diseases. They would die from cold in the Kentucky mountains. They would be killed by robbers or Indians, and so forth. So it was dangerous, took a lot of time, and cost you essentially all of your money to go to California. But the outcome, of course, was there was free land and the frontier and so forth. So the railroad tycoons who were building the railroad did the math and figured out that they could actually transport a passenger for $6. So 1,000 of the original price. And it would take about a week, and everybody would live and so forth. The question now becomes, what should we sell the ticket price for? At $6? Where we break even? No. Okay, let's do $7. Okay, at $7 we actually make money per ticket, but we also paid $1 billion to build the railroad. So where do we actually make money? And this is where the historic parallel comes into play, because the railroad tycoons were smart business people, and what they noticed was that not all of the customers are the same. So we would have affluent customers and, let's say, middle-class customers and we would have poor customers. All of them actually wanted to go to California. So we are now changing the problem from what should a ticket on the railroad cost to who is going on the railroad, what are their willingnesses to pay individually, and how should we charge those? Because implicitly, if you ask the question, how should I price my railroad? What you're doing is you're looking at your market as an optimization problem with one solution to it. You're saying, what is the single undifferentiated ticket price that will maximize my revenue from this market? And maybe if you put your ticket price somewhere, it will maximize it in the sense that, well, the second class middle passengers would pay to their limit. You would, of course, also sell to the affluent passengers, the one that would otherwise ride first class, but you would have an invisible loss in that they would actually be willing to pay more. You're just not charging them. And then you would have a very visible loss in the third class passengers that would be priced out of the market. They wouldn't buy because it was too expensive. So what the railroad tycoons realized is that, well, we need a ticket structure to capture different parts of this market in order to maximize the revenue potential from it. So the easy fix is you do product differentiation. So in the sense they do tiered packaging, they're saying, well, we have the second class passengers, they're priced whatever they're priced at, but now we're adding features, a dining wagon, a butler, room service, you get to sleep in a bed in the train during this week, and we're going to call that first class, and we're going to price it accordingly. The core solution of the train taking you from A to B, from Philadelphia to Sacramento, is the same, but it's the added features that suddenly can multiply the price tag on this. And they have a market for it. The first class passengers want to buy, they buy, and now you have multiplied the value from your solution, your software. Now, at the other end, you have these third class passengers that really are priced out of the market. So what we see also in enterprise software is that whatever price you choose, I would say, well, is the right for some passengers. Like if people come and say, well, I have the software, I was thinking about charging $500 a month for it or $100 per user. What do you think about that? My answer is always the same. That is going to be right for some customers. Invariably, some customers are going to be priced perfectly with that price, most likely. That's not really the issue. The issue is what you do about all the other customers, right? Because if you look at your pricing as an optimization problem, what's going to happen is that the ones that are priced out of the market that thinks your pricing is too high are going to tell you. So they're going to say, well, your pricing too high, you should lower the price. And you get this stream of information about pricing pressure from your lower quality customers or less willingness to pay customers that are going to compare you to competitors, really argue their case for why you're too expensive and so forth. But something else happens at the high end of your market, the first class customers. What they're going to do is they're going to ask for additional features because they are willing to pay for your solution, but they would actually like more from it. So they're going to say, well, we would like end-to-end encryption, and we would like audit trails, and we would like advanced roles and permissions, and we would like all the different types of high-value enterprise features that would expand the value of your product. Because they're not worried that they don't want to pay for it because they are willing to pay for it. They just want more out of your product. So in your structure, in your ticketing structure around your product, you have this dual source of information. You have the high-level customers that really try to make you increase development costs. And then you have these low-level customers that really try to make you reduce your price. So your job in creating a good ticket structure is to make everyone happy. It is to say, well, you can have your better product at a higher price, and maybe you can have a worse product at a lower price, and then everybody should be happy. So the way railroad tycoons approached this was, they said, well, we have the second class figured in. The first class really is also figured out, so they get the dining wagon and so forth. And then they had this issue with the third class passengers. So a lot of you who've tried to launch premium products will be able to relate to this. So the railroad tycoons had the following experience. They sold the third class tickets. They removed a little bit of the amenities from the wagons and said, well, okay, we're going to have a cheaper third class ticket. And then what happened was that all of the third class tickets sold out. But now nobody would want to buy the second class tickets because all of the passengers were relatively poor. They were Quakers, and they had just sat on an ocean liner all the way from Europe to America. So they weren't really considering the week on a train as an opportunity for luxury. They were just wanting to get to California, and they would rather save that extra money and have it in their pocket once they got there. And they would think, well, there's a train next week. If I don't get a third class ticket now, I'll just wait another week, buy then, and then I'll go for the cheaper ticket price. So this is where product innovation kicked in for the railroad tycoons. They said, well, okay, what we need to do is we need to lower the quality of the third class until the preference of the passengers is such that they actually voluntarily buy the second class, and we get a good spread of revenue across these different types of customers in our market. So how do they do it? Took out all the chairs, they removed the windows, they made the wagons purposely dirty, and it didn't help. The customers still bought up the third class tickets, and they would have empty seats in second class continuously. So finally they came up with an innovation to this problem, which was they went back to the original solution that they had. So the original solution was, we get you to California quickly, cheaply, and alive. These are the core tenets of the offering that they're bringing to the market. They couldn't sacrifice the first two, quickly and cheaply, because, well, quickly would mean less turnover on the train, so less money for us, so that doesn't work. Cheaply, well, we're arguing the price already, so that's sort of baked into the problem here. But the last one, alive, was theoretically up for debate. So what did they do? They took the roofs off the wagons. So by taking the roof off the wagon, you actually kill about 10% of the passengers as you go over the cold in the Kentucky mountains. So this was an ingenious way, a brutal capitalist way, for the railroad tycoons to say, well, you can get to California, but without the roof feature, you might not get there alive. Or you can pay the extra small fee to get into second class, and then you'll definitely get there alive. And this actually suddenly divided all the passengers into their relevant, appropriate categories of first, second, and third class. And the roofless wagons were an innovation that stuck with the Transcontinental Railroad for years. So another perspective on this is that no software entrepreneur, whether you're from a corporate or you're a startup, actually comes up with the idea for the railroad to offer a third class experience. Usually the innovation and the vision in the product always is with the first class in mind, right? We say, okay, we can take you to California, and we can do so with a dining wagon and with the whole shebang of customer experience. But what you need to figure out is that to create a good ticketing structure, a monetization structure around your product, really what you need to do is you need to figure out who's in your market and what aspects of your solution they have real demand for and real willingness to pay for, and package it accordingly. So the reason that the question, how do I price my product, is incorrect is that you're actually not trying to price your product, you're trying to price your customer.